Hello, this is Sandra Brown of Happiness Past 60. Well, we're going to be talking about the 50s again today. As I said before, I thought I was only going to do one or two. And you guys just keep throwing more ideas at me and reminding me of more things. So here we are, and I have to look it up, but I think this is number 5. All right, so I'll try to go through some of these quickly. But I do have some things I wanted to share with you, or just things I remember. Somebody brought up Mother May I, a game that we played. And I forgot exactly how it went, but they were saying is Mother would say, I guess the whole idea was you get to the other side first, whoever gets to the other side. And you're at a distance from whoever Mother was. So Mother would maybe say to someone on the line, you may take 5 giant steps. And then you had to say, Mother, may I, or you couldn't go. And so you would say, Mother, may I? And she would say something like, no, but you may take 7 baby steps. And then they had to say, Mother, may I? If they went ahead and took the steps before you said, Mother, may I, then you had to go all the way back. So a lot of it was controlled by the mother, but a lot of it was controlled by you if you forgot to say, Mother, may I. So if you remember that, let me know. I was thinking the other day about a girl that I used to hang around with in the housing project. And remember I was telling you about that little store, that little grocery store that was across the street from me where I used to go get penny candy, or my mother would send me with some money to get a jar of hot tamales at lunchtime. I was there one day, and there was a man who was there to purchase something, and I just thought he was so handsome. I think I know what it was. To me, he looked like Earl Flynn. Is that his name? Earl Flynn. And he was tall and dark hair and had a thin black mustache. And he began talking to me, and I was probably maybe 9, 10 years old, possibly. And he was telling me about his daughter, Diane. And that I think they had maybe just moved there. And he wanted to introduce me to her. So, you guys taking a chance, right? I suppose I was little, I don't know. But it was fine, everything was. But somehow or other, we got connected, Diane and I did. And she became a very good friend of mine. And as I was saying, in the housing project, there was just a lot of people who had baggage and problems, and maybe a lot of that is why they ended up there. Well, I was there too. I don't know. Parents just didn't have a lot of money. But her mother's name was Rose, and I just thought she was the prettiest little lady. Dark-haired lady. There's a squirrel jumping on my screen out here. And their grandmother lived with them. And she was from Czechoslovakia, I remember. And she couldn't speak any English. And no matter what dress that she wore or they bought for her, she would take some material and make this big bow and pin it on the front of her dress. I remember that. And I remember Diane would say, let's go visit my grandma. She was in the bedroom, and she was, I think, either totally blind or partially blind. But I know toward the end, like, she couldn't even really see me. And she would bring me in there, and she'd say, Grandma, this is Sandra. And the grandma would reach for my hand, and she would pat my hand, and she goes, "Oh, Sandra is a nice girl." You remember that? But that was so sweet of Diane that she wanted her grandma to meet me and that she thought of her. But Diane's parents were both appeared to be alcoholics. And they would sometimes, when I could only talk about them because Diane's gone, I'm sure none of her family's ever going to hear this. And I'm not mentioning names. Well, not last names at least. But I remember there were times I would spend the night at her house or she would spend the night at mine. But her parents would be drinking and get in these horrible fights. And they would be screaming at each other, and Diane and I would, I was naturally like, looking, like listening. The door was closed, but you could hear them. And she'd say, "Don't pay attention to them. Don't pay attention to them." I think it just, poor girl, it must have heard that a lot. And then as they were fighting, then I remember the grandma would get all upset, and she would come down the hall, and she would be speaking Czechoslovakian, ranting and raving and coming down the hall, and they're all fighting now, all three of them. And then the only English word the grandma could say was H-I-T. Yeah, I remember her saying that. Oh my goodness. But and I remember on the wall in one of the rooms there, maybe by the furnace room, was a calendar, and the calendar was a photo of Marilyn Monroe, and she was nude. That's the first nude photo I ever saw. It was on the wall. I think it was with a red background or something. She was, yes. But Diane and I we had not a lot to play with. We'd play cutouts a lot. Paper dolls, I love that. But we would make up stories. And it'd be like, okay, now it's your turn to make up a story. Now it's your turn. And it was all these mystery stories or detective stories. And we were both good. I think she was probably even better than me. I don't know, but that was always fun. And I was raised in a family who had a great sense of humor. My father did. Diane's family, not so much. And probably from what Diane was going through, she was kind of whiny. And I would always find humor in everything. So her mother, in the back of probably one of these true story magazines that all the mothers used to read all the time. I hear that squirrel again. We got that window feeder and the squirrel keeps going in there. Anyways, her mother, in the back, you could order things, and I think that's where her mother probably ordered it, but they were these, like a stencil of lips. Like I do my eyebrows. I do stencils for my eyebrows. Yes, if you've not seen that before. It's like my basic shape of my eyebrow, only it kind of fills it in more. Yeah. So, but anyway, she has stencils for her mouth. And so we found those in the bathroom, and we found a tube of bright red lipstick. Well, Diane was going to let me do her. I was so crazy. So and Diane had very thin, tiny little lips. And and I picked out the biggest lips on there. Well, I did that. And then filled it in with this bright red lipstick. And Diane was going, "Oh, let me see." And she looked in the mirror. And she would start crying with those big red lips. And she was crying. And then she ran out of the bathroom and was crying to her mother. And I didn't want her mom to be mad at me because I really liked her mom. And I don't remember that I did it on purpose, the big red lips. I don't know. I did that. But anyways, her mom always defended me. Oh, I'm sure Sandra didn't mean to do that. Oh my. So I don't know why I told you that. And Diane had a little sister named Martha Gale. Martha Gale might still be living. And Martha Gale always had red hair, and she always cried for Diane. And whenever we would go somewhere, Martha Gale would be at the screen door, screaming for Diane, and it would upset her to leave Martha Gale. But yes, so I of course moved away from there when I was maybe 14 years old, and I lost contact with Diane. But somehow, as adults, when my children were young, I was married to my first husband. I probably was in my 20s. Then Diane, I was a Christian. I think I was 20, maybe 25, something like that. And Diane got in contact with me somehow, and she came to my house. But I just was talking to her about the Lord, because she had begun getting into like Ouija boards, which we should not do, and also a lot of astrology things. And so I know my pastor came and visited her, which was nice of him, at her home, and spoke to her about it and things like that. And then we lost contact, and somehow or other, then I found out that Diane passed away. I don't know what happened. I tried finding some member of her family. I know she had a brother, Danny, I think his name was. But I have to give that a try. But anyways, she was a big part of my life, and part of my life when I lived in Columbia Center. And I took a lot of time telling you that. Oh my, are we ever going to get through all this? I don't know. Little things I could stick in here. Okay, I can remember having a little dresser in my bedroom with a three-way mirror, and my mother had painted the dresser blue. Dressing table, yeah. And I remember on my bed it was blue and white checkered or gingham-like bedspread with ruffles on it. And the little crocheted outfits she made for these dolls, those are all starched up. But I had a little record player, and I had this record of the McGuire sisters. Remember the McGuire sisters? There were three of them. Three of them, and I had a three-way mirror. And so I would put the McGuire sisters on, and then I would look at myself in the mirror, and there would be three of me, and I would pretend I was the McGuire sisters. It was great fun. It was really, I couldn't sing very good. I still can't. But I could then, because I was singing with the McGuire sisters, and they kept me in tune. All right, what other crazy thing can I think of? There are so many I can tell you. Okay, I might squeeze this one in. All right, I had, oh gosh, this might be too long to tell you. Okay, I will. I had an Aunt Virginia, and she was married to a man who was actually a gypsy. Nice looking, dark-skinned man, very, very intelligent, and always seemed to make good money. And his name was Naylor, Naylor. My daughter-in-law, when she heard that, thought that was the funniest thing, and I didn't understand what it meant. Maybe you don't, okay. But, all right. But I never thought anything of it. But to us, living in, low income, they always seemed to have money. And when they came to visit us, they always came in a big Cadillac or a Lincoln and dressed very well. And my aunt, she used to be a blues singer years and years ago. She could really sing good. and she was a pretty lady. And long story, if I should even tell that. But she gave away her children years ago. Depression, different circumstances. So she had no children. So she would get attached to different animals or things like this. Well, my uncle, Naylord, he owned these booths, these different booths where you threw a ball at these things and knock them over and win prizes in the fairs. And it would be different traveling fairs. And they traveled around in a trailer that they pulled. And he kept money under the floor of the trailer all the time. He always had a lot of money. And he ran these booths and made good money. Well, his mother and I think his sister were fortune tellers. Yes, I'm totally against it. Totally against that. The Word of God says, do not go to fortune tellers, okay? But she learned how to tell fortunes through them. It's all phony, the whole thing. But she was set up, she had business cards and everything, and people would give her cars, sewing machines, everything. She made big money by doing this. But it was all fake, of course. But anyways, one of the things they were giving away in one of the booths at this time, they never get away with it now, but baby ducks. I know. Well, my Uncle Naylor brought one of the baby ducks home, and he gave it to my Aunt Virginia. Well, she just fell in love with this duck, and I think somehow she had a Kleenex or something taped to it when it was little, running around the trailer, for a diaper. And then when it got bigger, I think she had to keep, they always lived in warm areas, but I think they had to keep it outside in a pen. But when they came to visit, well, she named him Donald until Donald laid an egg. And then she called it Danu. So, Danu duck. So, but whenever they came to visit us, they would pull up in this big Cadillac or Lincoln, whatever they had at the time. And in the back seat, in a box, was Danu duck. And they would bring it. Well, the neighbors around there, because they would come around Thanksgiving, they thought they were bringing a duck to eat every year, And I remember my grandma's little, I don't know where they were sleeping at, because Grandma just had one bedroom. But they would come there and they'd bring Danu, and he would be running all over the house. And then if he went, and she was, oh, my Danu baby, my Danu. And then when Danu would, let loose and go big potty, because you dirty, blah, 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 she would cuss the bird out. That's crazy. And then she'd fill my grandma's bathtub up and let the duck play in the bathtub and take a bath and stuff. Really crazy, right? And yet they were like so sophisticated. Always had heels on, always had a real nice dress, and she had fur coats, the whole thing. Strange thing, and maybe you know about this, his family, if someone died, her husband, who was Gypsy, if someone died in the family, they would take all of their belongings. When I said fur coat, it made me think about it. They would take their jewelry, their fur coats, all their clothes, everything they owned, and they'd put it in a big pile and burn it. They always did that. Now, if you know more about that, let me know. But or if you've heard of something like that. Or what time am I getting at? All right, guys, I just don't want to make this any longer. I've got so many crazy stories. I can tell you. I didn't mean to tell all that kind of stuff we were going to talk about. Okay, I'll throw one more in, okay, to get one in. Christmas catalogs, do you remember that? Oh my goodness. These big, thick catalogs for you younger ones that don't know this. We would get these big, thick catalogs. Were they from Sears Roebuck? But they would come to the house. Oh my goodness. So exciting for us children, wasn't it? And they would come way ahead of time, so we would circle everything that we wanted. Before it got to Christmas, we had everything circled in there almost. And then the pages would just be all curled up from us looking at it. And then we would also take it, I would, and make cutouts out of the things, like the ladies' clothes, things like that. Well, it was just simpler times, but we enjoyed it, and we sure entertained ourselves all the time. I don't ever remember saying I was bored. There was just always something to do. And we had to make up a lot of stuff. Oh my goodness, I have so much more still on this board. I'm looking down here. So I'll ask you to subscribe. I'm still trying to get to the 14,000. And like, that helps a lot when you just hit like. Because YouTube, that gives the algorithm or something that pushes you forward. And share. I'd appreciate that. Okay, God bless all of you with good health. If you need healing in your body, Lord, heal them. And if you need finances, God bless you financially. If there is problems in your family, dear God, I just pray for peace in the family among siblings and husbands and wives. If there's any abuse, let it stop in Jesus' name. Draw everyone closer to you, Father. Draw them to you. I know how you love them. You have no idea how much God loves you, folks. You have no idea how much He loves you. So, yeah, I have to share the next. I just got so much. Okay, guys. Love all of you. Bye-bye.